If you have ever stood in a room full of your own relatives and still felt like a guest, this teaching was carried a long way to reach you. Maybe you carry two bloods, two languages, two homelands, and both sides have made you feel like half of something. Diné tradition teaches that where two rivers meet, the water is not divided, it is doubled. Rivers meet, the water is not divided, it is doubled. The old ones I learned this from had a word for that meeting place, Hózhó. And tonight I want to tell you why they said it is born exactly where you are standing. Let me name the wound first. A named thing loses a little of its power over us. You know the arithmetic. Somebody did it to you early, and then you learn to do it to yourself. Half this, quarter that. On one side of the family you are too pale, or too dark, or your tongue stumbles on the old words, and a cousin smiles in a way that closes a door. On the other side, someone asks where you are really from, and that word really lands like a small stone. So you learn to edit yourself. In one house, you turn part of who you are down low, like a radio playing in another room. In the other house, you turn down the rest. You got good at it. And being good at it made you tired in a way that sleep does not fix. How long have you been doing that math? Adding your halves and your quarters and somehow always coming out to less than one whole person? Let me show you what I mean with somebody grown. I knew a man, a nurse, worked nights at a hospital off the reservation. His father was Diné, his mother came from across an ocean, and he spent his whole childhood being the only one of himself in every room. One night, near 2 in the morning, an old woman came into his ward, frightened, and she only had the old language left in her. The English had gone out of her the way it does when people get old and scared, and this man, who had spent years being told he was not Navajo enough, opened his mouth, and the words his grandmother used to say came up out of him from somewhere he had forgotten. He counted her breaths for her in that language. He told her she was safe in it, and she stopped shaking. He told me later he stood in that hallway afterward and cried, because for the first time, the half of him he had been apologizing for was the exact half that was needed. Not too much, not too little, needed. Hold on to that word, needed. We will come back to it. The old ones I learned from would say the arithmetic itself is the lie. Blood is not a pie. Nobody cut you. Let me tell you about a place. Up in the northern part of Diné country, there is a stretch of land the people call Tótah. The word means among the rivers. It is where the San Juan comes down heavy with snow water from the mountains, and the Animas comes to meet it, and the La Plata too. If you ever stand on the bank where two of those rivers run together, here is what you will not find. You will not find a seam. There is no line in the water, no place where one river ends and apologizes to the other. There is a swirl. There is a stretch where two colors of water move around each other for a while, and then there is simply more river, deeper, stronger, able to carry things that neither stream could have carried alone. Go there in late summer when the corn is standing tall in the bottomland, and you will understand why the people never left that ground empty. The soil where the rivers meet is soft and dark, and it holds water. Cottonwoods grow thick there, big old ones, the kind that shade a whole family at midday. Melons swell in that dirt. In the fall, the people came to that low ground to trade, to gather, to marry sometimes across a distance. Somebody's song from up in the mountains would meet somebody's song from down the valley, and by nightfall both of them were being sung around the same fire. Nobody stood on that bank at harvest and mourned the meeting of the waters. They planted in it. They fed their children out of it. And this is the part the old ones leaned on. As it was passed to me, the people never treated that meeting place as a damaged place. They treated it as a good place. The joining was never the wound of the land. It was the wealth of it. Nobody kneels on that bank and asks the river which half of it is which. Now let me tell you a story, the way it was told to me. The woman who first put this teaching into my hands was a weaver. Her name is not mine to give away, so I will just call her the Weaver, and I will tell you about the winter she spoke of most. She was maybe 9 years old. Her father was Diné, from a family that ran sheep in the hills. Her mother's people were from the river town, Spanish speakers, railroad and orchard people. In her father's family, the cousins teased her for the way she said certain words. In her mother's family, an aunt once looked at her a moment too long and said, "Well, she has the other face." 9 years old, and already a guest in both of her own houses. One afternoon she came home crying, because a boy at the trading post had told her she was not a real anything. Her grandmother was at the loom by the window. She did not say one word about the boy. She just moved over on the sheepskin and said, "Sit." That winter the grandmother had a problem, and the problem was wool. She had one lot she had dyed herself, browns from walnut hulls gathered in the fall, warm browns, almost red where the light caught them. And she had a second lot, traded from town, dyed by someone else's hands. A colder brown. The two did not match. And there was not enough of either one to finish the blanket alone, so the girl sat, and she watched her grandmother do a thing she never forgot. The old woman did not hide the change. She did not bury the join along an edge where nobody would look. She brought the two browns together in the very center of the blanket, and right at the joining she turned the pattern, so that the place where warm met cold became a band running through the middle. The boldest thing in the whole design. The click of the weaving comb went on all winter. The lamp burned low in the evenings. Snow came up against the door, and the sheep were close in the pen, and inside there was the smell of wet wool and cedar smoke, and the small steady sound of the comb beating the weft down tight. And slowly, week by week, the girl watched the mismatch become the pattern. When the blanket came off the loom, they carried it to the trading post, and she told me that every hand that touched it went first to the center band, every single one. Somebody asked, "This line here, how did you make this line?" Her grandmother only looked sideways at the girl. But later, walking home in the cold, she said the sentence the weaver carried for the rest of her life. She said, "Some people will call that line a flaw. Let them. You and I know it is the design." Then she stopped on the path, and she put her hand flat on the girl's chest, and she said, "You are the place where two wools meet. The person who told you the meeting line is the weak line has never woven anything." Now, Hózhó, I gave you the word at the beginning, and I owe you a plain telling of it. Diné teachers explain it in more than one way, so hold my version loosely, the way I try to hold it. You will hear it translated as harmony, or beauty, or balance. But, as it was taught to me, it is less like a picture hanging straight on a wall and more like everything standing in right relation to everything else, moving the way it should move. When something falls out of that relation, the work is to restore it. Not to make everything identical, to bring different things back into right relation with each other. Think of it the way you would think of a song sung by more than one voice. If everyone sings the exact same note, that is not harmony. That is just one note, sung loud. Harmony only happens when the voices are different and they find each other. The low voice does not become the high voice. It stays low. And because it stays low, the whole thing rings. That is closer to what the old ones meant. The beauty needs the difference. Take the difference out and you have not fixed anything. You have only made it thinner. And that is the door for you, because hear what Hózhó is not. It is not sameness. One color of wool is not a pattern. One river makes a valley, but two rivers make a bottomland where corn will grow. In this old way of seeing, difference is not the enemy of harmony. Difference is the raw material of it. Beauty, in this sense, happens at edges and meetings, where one thing touches another thing that is not like it, and the two of them find their right relation. So listen, a person made of two worlds is not out of harmony by nature. You were never the broken thing. What breaks harmony is the war. the quiet one inside you, where one half of you keeps trying to evict the other. As it was passed to me, the mixture was never the imbalance. The fight against your own mixture is. Let me bring this down to the ground, into moments I think you will know. Your name. Maybe one grandmother said it soft and rounded, and the other side flattened it, and teachers gave up on it entirely, and somewhere along the way you started introducing yourself with a shrug attached. Listen to me. A name that lives in two mouths gets carried further. Both ways of saying it are yours. You are allowed to love them both, and you are allowed to correct anyone, gently, on either side of the family. The form. You know the one. It has little boxes on it, and you are supposed to check one, and none of the boxes is you. Sometimes there is a box that says other, as if you were a leftover. I want you to hear this. You are not the leftover on a page. A form is a filing cabinet built by people who never met you. It has to be small enough to fit in a drawer. You do not. That is not your failure. That is the drawers. Holidays. There is a table where they sing songs you only half know, and another table where the food is right but the prayers feel strange, and maybe there is a day in the year that neither calendar fully claims, and on that day you feel like weather, like something passing through. But look at what you can do that nobody else at either table can. You can carry a dish from one table to the other. You can explain a joke across the gap. You are the one in the family who can stand in the middle of the river and hand things across. That is not a small job. In the old way of seeing, the one who can move between camps is not the lost one. That one is precious. And there are the hard days when they need you to carry the words. A grandfather in a hospital bed, and a doctor talking too fast, and every face in the room turns to you, because you are the one who can move the meaning from one language to the other. A funeral, where you are, the bridge between the mourners who pray this way and the ones who pray that way. Nobody thanks you for it. It is heavy, and it is lonely sometimes, standing in that middle place with both sides leaning on you, but do not miss what it means. In the worst hour, they do not turn to the one who is purely one thing. They turn to you, because you can reach both banks. And the question, you have heard it in schoolyards and in office kitchens, what are you? Sometimes it comes out curious, sometimes with an edge on it. You do not owe anyone a fraction. You are not required to answer in percentages, like you are reading the side of a feed bag. Try this instead, even if you only ever say it inside yourself. I am a place where two families meet, whole ones, both of them still flowing. Maybe this one too. You understand your grandmother's language, but you answer in English, and the shame of that sits in your throat at every gathering. Hear me. Understanding is belonging. The language is in you, lying quiet like a seed under snow. A seed is not a failure. It is just early. Or the mirror. Some morning you stand in front of it and try to sort your own face into halves, this from her, that from him, as though you could lay yourself out on a table and separate the wools again. Stop counting. That face is not a sum. It is a meeting. Nobody standing at Tótah tries to weigh how much of the river came from which mountain. They just drink. So let me say what the old ones would call the work. The work is not to choose a side. Do not let anyone tell you that healing means picking one bank and drowning the other river inside you. That is not peace. That is just a quieter war. As it was passed to me, the work for a person of two worlds is to end the fighting in your own chest, so that both streams can run clear, and then to become the one who carries across. The one who hands the dish, the word, the song, from this table to that one. You are not made mixed by accident and left to apologize for it. You are made into a crossing place. People need those. A people with no crossings is a people that cannot reach itself. So here's where I leave you tonight, and I want to say it slowly, because somewhere back down the years, somebody made you memorize the opposite. You are not half of two things. You are the meeting of two whole things, and the meeting place is where the old ones said beauty gets born. Below the joining, the river belongs completely to both mountains it came down from. Nobody makes it choose. The water is not divided, it is doubled. That was true of the rivers at Tótah. It was true of a brown band running through the center of a winter blanket. It was true of a man in a hospital hallway who finally got to be kneaded in both of his tongues. And the ones who taught me would say it is true of you. You are a bridge, not a crack. When both sides made you feel like a guest, this teaching was already on its way to you, carried hand to hand across a long distance, so that someone could finally sit down beside you and say the simple thing: you belong to both. You always did. Walk in beauty.